What is love? I don't know what love is.
Love is like moments. It's like happiness.
I don't think love is easy to describe.
Love is a decision, it's a commitment. You decide to love.
Sharing things.
Love comes from the small details.
Love is the feeling between the two people.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who they are, it's just a strong connection between the two of them.
Love is defined as a strong emotional connection between two people. Homosexuality is romantic love between two people of the same gender. Research has shown that homosexuality is a natural variation in human sexuality. It's natural. But for some reason, homosexuality is a widely argued topic. This video is aiming to discover the acceptance of homosexuality across 4 continents. We're looking at England, Belgium, Spain, Ghana, South Africa, Argentina, and Brazil to find patterns in the acceptability or lack thereof of homosexuality. We're asking questions like, how is love perceived by the people of each country? How acceptable is homosexuality in Europe, Africa, and South America? How does it relate to the acceptability in the United States? How is the acceptance of homosexuality spreading? We started our journey in Europe.
There's lots of different views on love, really. I don't know, it depends. I think it just depends on the person and what they think, because there's so many different people out there.
We have different views, don't we? We have like gays and lesbians.
We have a lot of like LGBT, we have a lot of different sort of things.
Homosexuality in Ireland, England, Belgium, Portugal, Spain, and the Canary Islands is much more widely accepted in public and legally than in the United States. Couples in general are much more affectionate with one another when in public, including those of homosexual orientation.
I accept that people express the love the way they like. They kind of person of the same sex or not.
All of the European countries that we visited have a ban against anti-gay discrimination, as well as some sort of recognition of officially unifying same-sex couples, whether it be declared as a civil union or same-sex marriage.
Is gay marriage legal in the UK? Yeah. Yes?
No. You can do a civil partnership.
Yeah, you can't do it in a church, but it's like a civil partnership.
Homosexuality is really accepted here, like it's not uncommon to see it.
Spain, being the first to legalize both civil unions and same-sex marriage, appeared to be the most comfortable with homosexual interactions in public. For example, in the Canary Islands, an autonomous community of Spain, my friend was hit on by a girl within 5 minutes of meeting her in the middle of the street, and although they could not understand one another, it was made quite clear that this woman was interested in my friend. While my friend politely declined, I was surprised to see this interaction occur not long after knowing one another.
We have different areas of the country where we're more
Yeah.
For example, Brighton, where we're from.
we
known
live
for having lots of gays.
It's like the gay capital of the UK, basically. We recently had Gay Pride as a celebration of LGBT and what they believe in.
I observed the public's reaction to be very minimal. People took little to no notice when pairs of women were kissing in London near the touristic London Eye spot, nor when in Antwerp, Belgium, where multiple pairs of men were seen holding hands and kissing.
It's very normal that 2 lesbians have kids.
Yeah.
They adopt them.
Yes.
It's allowed.
Is that a very common thing in your country?
Common,
Gay,
it
lesbian?
happens, it happens.
Yeah.
But it's very broadly accepted.
Yeah,
Broadly.
it's considered quite normal.
Okay,
Yeah,
quite
considered
normal.
They were treated no differently than couples consisting of a man and a woman. I was surprised to see any forms of public displays of affection, as it is not common in the United States, but especially between homosexuals, as I had never experienced that before visiting Europe. Europe opened my eyes to a much more public way of living for homosexual couples, but it did nothing to prepare me for what awaited us in Ghana, Africa.
Our country, my people, we believe that love is meant to be between a man and a woman. We are a very religious country. God is our guide. Those are the words spoken to me by a 22-year-old man named Joseph in Ghana, Africa. He and I had been talking for over an hour, and only deep into our conversation did I dare bring up homosexuality. I was hesitant to ask him due to Ghana's strict laws against expressive homosexuality. In Ghana, a man can serve up to 3 years in prison for a consensual sexual act with another man. When I mentioned this, Joseph nodded, his smile straightening into a frown, and said to me, "That is because we follow the Bible. We believe the Bible is law." He paused after this, and then, suddenly, his head popped up from his woodwork, and he proclaimed, "Why? Is that not how America is?" I was honestly taken aback at this question. Joseph, in his remote village in Ghana, had no idea that homosexual rights were being fought for all around the world. I found this both fascinating and a stark reminder that we should hesitate to assume our customs are the customs of another people. It also made me question, can people keep their traditions and still fight for the right to love? How will further globalization affect the acceptance of homosexuality? How can I, as a human rights activist, continue to fight for both freedom of religion and freedom of sexuality? We parted that night with mutual respect, and as we said goodbye, we agreed on this: love, in any form, is power. Six days after leaving Ghana and encountering strict laws against homosexuality, we entered Cape Town, South Africa, where the story was drastically different.
The average South African is pretty tolerant in terms of, this is a free country and you can pretty much do whatever you like here as long as it doesn't break any laws.
Cape Town is the capital of gays in South Africa, so it's everywhere. Near in the townships, a lot of
Gay marriage has been legal in Cape Town since 2006. Instead of laws against homosexuality, there are laws against discrimination.
Gay couples can definitely adopt children. There's no laws preventing that as far as I know. And as far as I know, I think at the moment, I must just check, but I think there is legislation that you can enter what they call a civil union.
Law was passed in the parliament. Between a guy and a guy, also between a girl and a girl.
My experience in Cape Town was that homosexuality is wholeheartedly accepted. I asked my tour guide what he thought about gay marriage, and before I could even finish the question, he said to me, "I cannot stress enough the importance of equal rights. This country has too much history of inequality."
Here in Cape Town, there's a whole month dedicated to what they call the Pink Diary. And they have this gay pride march and everything where everybody dresses up and everything. One of my oldest friends takes part and it's all outrageous and feathers like a minor Mardi Gras and everything.
We must look to the future as equals. Equals in race, age, orientation, ability, all of it. We must see each other as equals.
To be honest, I was not sure what to expect from South America in terms of accepting homosexuality. I knew that many of the countries were quite religious, but also that they were a very diverse people who embraced their differences and uniqueness.
I think Brazil, just given that Brazil and Argentina, given the Catholic nature of both countries, I really wouldn't have expected same-sex relationships to be as open as they were. It wasn't like I saw lots and lots of folks, but I would have thought that the Catholic nature of both countries would have put a damper on it.
The first day in Buenos Aires, a tour guide on one of my trips mentioned that Argentina was the first, and so far the only, country in South America to legalize gay marriage, and he was quite proud of this fact. Earlier in the day, while at a tourist information center, we discovered that they had an entire map detailing the best gay bars, districts, etc. Again, they seemed to be proud of their acceptance and were happy to give us more information. Unfortunately, we missed the Gay Pride Parade by a week, but I could still see that their country had not only accepted homosexuality, but embraced it.
I get my back
Argentina, absolutely. You know, particularly women. I saw women holding hands, and it didn't look like kind of the traditional Latino, you know, just kind of close. It looked like couples.
I was surprised, however, that Brazil had not legalized gay marriage, and was therefore excited to figure out whether or not homosexuality was accepted there. It turns out that Brazil is very much like many parts of the United States. Our guide explained that while it is not legal and not necessarily accepted, same-sex couples can get married in some churches and are allowed to adopt children. The acceptance of homosexuality is still fairly new, however.
Brazil is a massive kind of society, and so you still find a lot of homophobic sentiments and so on in Brazil, taking place in Brazil. What we have seen in terms of the attacks on homosexuals and so on usually takes place exactly when there is public demonstration of affection. I think the general population is probably not yet ready to accept that.
He himself is not against the idea, but still feels that it is a bit unnatural. We talked some more about it, and he gave me the impression that while some people in Brazil are accepting, they have not embraced homosexuality in the same way that Argentina has.
We are in a globalized world, so Brazil is being exposed to the news in places all over the world. I think Brazil has been influenced a lot by other places, other countries, and pressured. But the question is Brazil ready for example, same-sex marriage and so on? I'm not completely sure.
In general, I feel that South America was more accepting of PDA and displaying relationships, whether the relationship be guy-girl, guy-guy, or girl-girl. Though it was Argentina in particular that was the place that best represented homosexuality as normal. It was not simply a hot issue to be debated or something to be observed and analyzed. It just was.
While there are many countries that accept civil unions or recognize marriages, there are currently only 11 countries in the world that have fully legalized same-sex marriage. 8 of these countries are in Europe. 6 of them are members of the European Union. The other 3 are Canada, Argentina, and South Africa, all of which have close ties to Europe through their initial colonization and their current desire to become more European. During this voyage, we were fortunate enough to have visited 6 of these 11 countries, exposing us to many open and accepting viewpoints in regards to homosexuality.
I would say the EU is a lot more forward with issues than the United States is. They just see things differently. They don't see it as against the Bible or something, even though 75% of Spaniards are Catholic.
This experience has changed our understanding and put into perspective how far behind the U.S. is when it comes to this acceptance of same-sex marriage.
Before the journey, I would have said we are further ahead. After the journey, I feel like we're further behind because there's so much sort of the counter protests against it, with the Constitution. I just think, particularly in places like Europe, it's just sort of going kind of, in a very pretty quick pace.
We found that Europe, and specifically the European Union, is the most accepting of homosexuality, and observed that many more European countries are very close to legalizing same-sex marriages.
I actually saw a lot more, just visibly saw more same-sex couples in Europe than I did in any other country, certainly than in Africa. I've never seen any same-sex couples at all in Africa. Saw quite a few same-sex couples in South America, but Europe, there seemed to be openness, about, public displays of affection and, just public acknowledgement of your partner. I do think the EU, the European Union, will have a big impact, and it might be that the EU even does legislation, through the EU Parliament.
From there, the acceptance appears to be spreading to countries that have strong ties to Europe, specifically the countries that have already legalized same-sex marriage.
what's going on in the world. So it was a little shocking to me that so many states not only don't have same-sex marriage, but have built it into their constitution. You know, that it's unconstitutional, and that's new. So, you know, sort of an extraordinary measure of not just outlawing same-sex marriage, you know, by law, but really changing their constitutions. This constitution's been around for a long time.
The U.S. may be behind, but they are moving forward, and many states voted on marriage laws in this past election, so change may be on the horizon.
There are 2 Supreme Court cases coming up. One that's probably going to rule on the unconstitutional nature of Defense Against Marriage that was passed under George Bush, and then the other one that's coming up is about the unconstitutionality of Proposition 8. So if that happens on the federal level, that will really change a lot of things. To me, it's the same kind of fight that happened over the miscegenation laws. You know, where white people couldn't marry African Americans. I think people will look back 20, 30 years from now and say, what was the fight about? You know, what was that all about? You know, it's such a non-issue.
We understand that this process of global acceptance may take a while, but we are confident that the idea is spreading and that globalization and the increase in global connections will help foster this change.
There's a state legislator, Bill Lippert, and he's a gay man, and he was openly gay, serving in the legislature. And I remember hearing him speak once, and he said, you know, there's nothing to fear from gay marriage. You know, I've been with my partner for 25, 30 years. You know, you want more loving families, not less loving families.
Love?
Amor.
Utando.
Liefde.
Love.